Hey, welcome back everybody. We're at the Humanoids Summit 2024 at the Computer History Museum in Mountain View, California. It's the inaugural event. It's pretty exciting. I've been told that this is the greatest and largest collection of humanoid robots ever assembled in the same place. I don't know, I'm sure the internet will fact check me on that, but that's what I've been told. And we're really excited about this next guest taking a completely different approach to this problem, and I think really a path to a winning approach, because this is not what you typically think, and this is not your father's car assembly robots that we're talking about. So welcoming in, he's Jerome Monceaux, the co-founder and CEO of Enchanted Tools. Jerome, great to see you.
Hello.
So you just got off the keynote, and I have to say the whole room was in tears at the end of the keynote, but I will back up a couple steps. You've been involved in this for a while. You created a popular robot named Pepper, who I think is on display here at the museum. So you had a couple iterations when you came at Enchanted Tools, and you came at it with a very different perspective. And I'll just tee it up that basically you thought of the robot not as a machine, but as a character. Exactly. And that opens up a whole different number of things. How did you come to that conclusion, and what does a character first approach enable you to do that just a simple utility machine is not able to do?
You know, with Nao and Pepper, we produce 40,000 units that we dispatch all over the world.
40,000
units, yeah. We got more than 1,000 units running on the consumer market, and some of us was running in retail and facing people all the time. And my question was, how could I create an interesting content with that robot? Not only answering basic question or doing some basic moves, but bringing something that is important for the user. And honestly, at the beginning, it took time, and I was failing all the time. I didn't know how to bring appearance of life, an interesting content, and one day I understood that a humanoid robot is a character. So this means that it's like a character who escaped from the story to enter the reality. And the opportunity is huge, because then, if the character from the story is entering our world, we can live its story, you know?
Right, and I just love how you created an entire backstory, you created an animated movie, and the other thing you've talked about in some of your other talks is once you take this character approach, there's actually a lot of professional people that have been in the business of developing characters for a long, long time. I mean, you can look at Disney, you can look at all types, you know, the basic storybooks that we grew up with. So once you have this kind of concept of a character, it gives you an ability to build that out in lots of different directions.
Yeah, and you know, people can know about the humanoid, the character, before meeting the character. They know the value, they know the mission, they know the funny things about that, and then the first time they can interact with the humanoid, they know what to say. They have an idea of what the robot could be useful for, what is the value, what is interesting, that character. And then something can start in between the users and the robots.
Right. You talked in the keynote about this magical moment too, when you figured out that it's the reaction to what you do that really gives the robot life, and that it actually, it's a reflection of life that gives life as much as its actual reaction. So to react, to listen, to move, when you do something, really is a powerful kind of feedback loop.
Yeah, and so what I was doing before is trying to bring life, to give life to a robot by giving some motion, give him some sound, give him some light, and stuff like that. And any time that was more a puppet than a lively things. And one day, I start playing with a sound localization algorithm, and I discovered that I felt seen by the machine when the machine is looking at me because I have made a sound or something. And that day, I understood that the most important thing is to reflect the life. Even when I'm talking to you, I'm looking you into the eye, you are moving, you are smiling, you are doing something. I'm answering you, and I'm reflecting your own existence. And since I'm doing this, it totally changed the way the robot is perceived, and you know, the proof it works is when I got kids. If we got kids here, they will be running all over to meet the robot, and at the end, they will be back on mine, say, yours is the only one that runs, you know? Because they feel they exist for the robot,
right,
simply.
Right.
Yeah.
Another really great concept that you introduced with this character idea is that rather than have it look like a person, or a dog, or whatever, because it doesn't look like something we're familiar with, we don't have the expectations that it's going to behave in that way. And I thought that was so innovative, just something as simple as the long ears, which don't look like a natural animal. Maybe a giraffe maybe has long ears like that. But then, so that you don't have this expectation kind of mismatch with the way that the robot actually behaves.
Yeah, exactly. So at the beginning, like everybody, we start to create humanoid look like us. So if they look like us, we expect the behavior to be like us. We expect the robot to see the world like us, to understand everything, to understand the situation, to have the right appropriate behavior in the right context, because it looks like us. But robot can't see the world like we do. They can't do everything we does, you know? So at the end, you feel disappointment about the humanoid robot. So I tried to find a way to shift the expectation, to project people into an unexpected situation, meeting something they do not know. They have some codes, 2 eyes, long ears, a behavior that is very animal, but that's not a dog, that's not a human, that's something else. And then start something that I call the double encounter. I can discover and can be curious about the character, but the character can be curious about me.
Right.
And then something, an adventure can start.
Right. Well, and the other piece I thought was very insightful is the way that through interaction with the robot, you learn how the robot sees the world. And I think there was an analogy that you used with a dog. Dogs don't see the world exactly the way that we see the world, but once you interact with your dog enough, you kind of understand what makes the dog work and how the dog sees the world. So enabling this kind of interactive way to understand how the robot sees the world, really different approach.
Yeah, exactly. You know, if you take a human perspective on what a humanoid robot is doing, let's say they are bad at everything. It's difficult to grab an object. It's difficult to move somewhere. It's difficult to interact, to recognize the situation. They are bad at everything. If you consider this robot in a human perspective. But if you take a look to a dog cannot talk. He's bad at talking. There's a lot of things he can do, but if you take the dog point of view, he's good at, I don't know, moving, jumping, listening sound, smelling things. So I tried to move in a very German word for that, which is Umwelt. I tried to make people understand what the robot is good at, in what the robot is good at, to make them consider that this robot has magic power, like balance on the ball, he can feel objects, he can feel people that are coming there because they are small objects like this, and there is a lot of magic inside this character design.
Right, I love it. So one of the things you talked about in your keynote is some basic robot things. You know, interaction, grasping, navigating.
Yep.
And what you tried to do is add what is the social aspect and the emotional aspect that go with those behaviors. Again, a very different way to frame the problem.
Yeah, actually a robot is deployed in a place where we are living. You know, it could be a museum like that, even a factory, a home, or an hospital. So it's not a personal robot. It's not only for one people, it's a group interaction. So the robot could have social skills, like being able to recognize people, to talk to them, to talk to a group of people at once, to know that this is a kid and this is a grandma, and here I could be useful like this, here I can bring funny like that. You know, that the kind of things the robot should manage. And it's not only about talking and interacting with the people, it's also about the way he moves, of the kind of object he grasps, or the kind of manipulation he does.
Right, right, I love it. Enchanted Tools, and you talked about in your keynote that enchantment is an important piece of this, right? It shouldn't be a surprise with all the animation and the character development, but actually it's beyond, it's not just fulfilling tasks, it's actually providing joy, and you use joy specifically. Again, a really different objective to go after than if you're just trying to fulfill tasks.
Yeah, the goal of my life, I'm used to say that the goal of my life is to bring marvel to people, you know? I want the reality, I want everybody being curious about this, about that, about science, about knowledge, and things like that. And we are the generation that is bringing humanoid to people. We have a duty. We need to create the more beautiful, because humanoid at the end will live with us. In 100 years, there will be humanoid everywhere. So I want our generation to bring the best humanoid possible, show to the people of the future that we are more than designing tools. We understand peoples, we understand inclusion, we understand how to help whatever could be that person to be helped.
Yeah, I love too, one of your stated objectives is to make this available to the widest possible market.
Yeah.
You've been at it for a while. I'd love to get your perspective on kind of the exponential curves in technology.
Yeah.
How power and intelligence and some of these new learning methodologies and the language models has changed the world of robotics, and what do you see in the not too distant future that you couldn't ever imagine, say, when you started working on Pepper?
Oh yeah, we are living a revolution this time. So I could not imagine we have done robotics before ChatGPT and before a large language model, because we were trying to deal with the complexity of the reality with sentences like if this, then that. But this never occurs that way. It's a probability to occur, and it's fuzzy, it's complex all the time. And that, even if you want to do this, you're not exactly going there or do exactly that. It's always like a fuzzy and dealing with that fuzziness, and the deep neural network can play with massive probability, and that is exactly the approach we needed. And from my point of view, all the deterministic technology we got before, it could be a robot in a factory, it could be a humanoid robot, of course, but it could be also, I don't know, a graphical user interface. They are all being developed within this and that. And we are entering a world where we don't care about that, and we can just synthesize the interface and the behavior on the fly, depending on what's happened around, based on a large number of probability.
Right. So many places to go. But you wrapped up your keynote with a really interesting story, and you had a radiation doctor who works with children.
Yeah.
And talked about the fact that when you're getting radiation treatment for cancer, no one can be in that room with you, and it's a big scary machine. And these poor kids have to go through this 20 days in a row, whatever. It's terrible. It's a terrible story. But your robot can actually accompany the kid into the room. But what was interesting to me is that if you built this whole relationship, you allow the child to build a relationship with the robot over time in all these different form factors. First, they can watch the movie, and they're used to watching movie with animated characters. Then they can meet it with the parents. They can meet it with the doctor. To actually build a relationship so that the day they have to go into that horrible space, they have a friend.
So first of all, I want to create enthusiastic technology and robots, and there is a reason why we are doing things like that, because there is some very bad situation for people, like loneliness for elderly people, like people who are unserved, kids in a radiotherapy room, there is so much bad thing in that world. So if we can bring a technology that helps people, both like a tangible way, but also psychological way, we will have done something very big. And as we said previously, characters of this robot is like an animation movie character. So we developed a character, a digital character, with whom you can talk through your phones, so the kids have an iPad, and on the iPad he can see the character living on its own planet, far, far away, and he can interact and ask questions. Some question a kids that have cancer could have about the radiotherapy is, can I have baby later on? And he don't want to ask that question to his parents, strange, or to doctors, and to whom can he ask that question? And with the pediatric teams, we invent a way and knowledge so that we feed the character, so then the kid can create a relationship with that character before entering that rooms and before meeting the actual real robots.
And do they maintain that relationship? Can they get a version of the digital robot forever?
I hope so. We are at the beginning. We started that a couple of months ago.
Right.
We met kids and they really enjoyed the program. So I will be very happy to let the characters go and with them on long-term basis.
Yeah, well, Jerome, it's a really exciting story and super cool robot, so thanks for sharing it, and really enjoyed learning about it, because I love your approach. I love the character approach. It opens up a whole new universe.
Thank you a lot.
All right, he's Jerome, I'm Jeff. We're at the Humanoid Summit 2024. Thanks for watching, I'll see you next time.